Hey, it's Mike White. So, someone asked a question about uploading an image with a transparent background. And I thought I would try to show you at least one way to do a transparent background in Adobe Photoshop. So, I found this image on Public Domain Pictures and I've downloaded it. And I have it here on my computer. And I'm just going to open it with Photoshop. So, we're waiting for it to load. And I have mine set to do this raw import, which you don't have to have. There's no reason for that, for this. So there's many challenges in removing a background, and there's many ways to do it. And, in Photoshop, you actually have a select subject up here where you can just click select subject and kind of let Photoshop's AI do the best job it can at processing the image. And, you can see that it's done a fairly decent job. It's selected some of the objects well. You can see the selection by this, little wavy line that's going around the outside. But as you can tell, it didn't get the fine details outside of this conch shell or whatever that is. I'm not sure what kind of shell that is. And it selected this one really well, and this one, and then it just missed completely this one up here in the corner. So it's very difficult for an artificial intelligence to figure out where the edges are. So another way to do that. Well, here, let me just reselect that. Let's see, select, reselect, and I'm just going to right click and duplicate this layer. You can also just click layer from background. That's probably the best thing to do. Usually I duplicate it so I have my original and I convert that to a smart object and just hide it so that I can always go back to it. But let's just hit delete here. Oops, that's not what we want. We want to hit select, inverse, delete. And that's what we got for free basically with Photoshop. If you're paying for Photoshop, you've got this ability to select the background without any real work, and it's done a fairly decent job. One way to tell how good of a job it's done is to add another layer, and I just hit Control Shift N. You can also just go to Layer, New Layer, and then just paint in. I'm going to grab my paint bucket tool, and I'm hitting Control D to deselect, or you can hit select, deselect up here. And then I'm just going to select that layer below and paint black. So that really gives you a good impression of what it's done. You can see if there's any white outlines. You can really see the quality of what it's done here. So, I'm not happy. Look, it's messed up the inside of this shell. So let me show you another way to do that. Let's just back up. So I am going to duplicate the layer just so I don't have to continue to do that. And I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to convert it to a smart object that saves everything in the biggest size. And if I resize the canvas, it'll just preserve all of that stuff. And then I'm just going to hide that layer. And you can't see anything happening on the screen because this layer is still above it. But now I've got this layer above it and this layer below it, and I can mess with this layer and not worry about losing my work. So one thing I could do here is if I was happy with this selection and all I wanted to do is not have it cut out the inside of this shell here, then I could just hold Alt. I have my lasso tool. I grab the lasso. I can hold Alt and just literally select around that and get a better edge here. And there's so many selection tools in here. I could spend hours teaching you how to do this. But for now, that's all I'm going to show you with that automatic selection. And to get to that again, we hit the magic wand and then we chose the select subject. And you can do device or cloud. And I have found the cloud does give better results, just like it says. Okay, so what's another technique? We could simply use the magic wand. And so now I've just clicked the magic wand on the white space, and it's, arguably done a better job of keeping, more of the details. I mean, we got more of this shell. And if I hit delete right now, we'll see that we probably got a better selection in a lot of ways. But if we go back and we add our layer of black, now you're seeing, really kind of the mistakes that magic wand tool made. So that's, not perfect, and it's not easy. So, cleaning all this up and making sure that there's no little fuzzy bits around these edges, all this little pixelation, that can take some time. All right, so my preferred method, if you will, is to actually trace. It's time consuming, it's painstaking. It's the only way that I can get a really clean object. So I'm just going to delete these layers. I'm going to turn the one I had hidden on again, duplicate it, turn the one that I'm keeping as my copy off. This is now a smart object. I'm trying not to overload you with information, but a smart object preserves all of the original pixels, and it's not directly editable. And so what I like to use is I like to come in here and do the magnetic lasso. And again, there's many techniques for doing this. And the magnetic lasso is far from perfect. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a new layer underneath, the layer that we're working on, okay? And then I'm going to make a clipping mask. So I'm going to create a clipping mask. Oops, I did that on the wrong layer. I want to create a clipping mask on this layer, the one that we're wanting to, our actual artwork. And then that's now clipped this layer to everything that's on this layer. And since this layer is empty, there's nothing there. So then I'll take like a nice 50% gray, and that's any color will work, and just paint 50% gray over the entire layer. So now we have this layer that's got our image on it, and we have this gray layer underneath it. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my magnetic lasso, and I'm just going to start cutting away. I used to trace around and try to preserve what's there, and now I try to actually cut away from the edges. So I chose this image because it's going to be a challenge. It's got a lot of detail. It's got a lot of blurry little fuzzy parts, and the lasso is going to have trouble. And you can see me kind of just struggling with it a little bit, watching the line. I'm just literally tracing along. It fixes itself, and when it doesn't fix itself the way I want it to, I just click and make sure that it actually puts a point there. So see, it's placing these points, along the surface pretty automatically. And when I see it start getting out of line, like it did right there, I'm just going to go back up and fix it. Okay. And so then, when I get a decent amount done, I'm just going to go way around in a big arc and then select. And then again, making sure I've got my gray layer selected, my mask layer, I'm just going to hit delete. Okay, so let's just imagine all we want is this big hero shell in the middle. So just to clean things up for my, for everybody's sake, I'm going to go ahead and get rid, and I'm just using the regular lasso tool. I'm going outside the edges so that I get all the way to the edge. And I'm just going to come right around, and just the things that are easy, just like that. And I'm going to come right around and just match up with this other part. And then I'm going to hit delete. So that's kind of, getting in closer to my subject, and taking care of most of the parts of the image that we don't want. So I'm just going around, kind of isolating the part where I need to work. And I missed a little bit here in the bottom, so I'm just going to go around that. Okay, and again, I'm just deleting that from the mask layer. So this is our mask at this point. And so now we're just going to keep refining the mask. I keep wanting to say this. There's 1,000 ways to do this. And I've been dealing with this stuff for many, many years. And this is, the very best way that I've come up with for myself. This is how I prefer to work. It's somewhat, it's like you can work in little sections and refine your mask this way. So now I'm going to come around and see I'm struggling because it's not liking these little fine details, these little edges. And if I want to preserve them, I'm going to have to keep placing the vertices manually along this path. So here we go. I mean, this is the struggle. And if we wanted to get that hard line there, it'd be a lot easier, to actually zip along this line. And that's just a choice you make. I mean, that's you as the artist deciding, do I want to just zip down this line? And is that fine? Or do I want to be on this outer edge? Where do I want to be with my outline? So, I'm going to try to get this one more time and see if I can actually get something reasonable in a reasonable amount of time. I know a lot of you that are going to watch this video are going to think, wow, that's time consuming. I'm just going to go to remove background. I'm trying to show you if you are a perfectionist and you want perfection, you want complete control, this is the way to achieve it. There's so many easier ways to do this. So it seemed to like that. I'm just being very careful and following it along with my mouse. And then when I get to an easy part, I'm just going to end it. And you just come right back around and click to end and then delete. And so you can see, our mask is coming along. That's what our mask actually looks like. So now let's show you an easier part of this image. So like tracing down here along this, because of the big color difference there, lot simpler. And just do a section of it and then delete. And then I'm hitting Control D. I'm using my mouse with my right hand because I'm right-handed, and then I have my left hand perched over the Control Alt section of the keyboard in the bottom left corner. All right, and then there's that. Cut that guy off. The magnetic lasso is just zipping along. It likes this part of the document because it's not white. It's got more of a contrast to cling on to. Darker lines. So you hear me clicking right there. I'm actually placing those points inside the parts where I want it to be more, precise. And there we go around the tip. I'm ready to. If it's off the page and you just drag, the lasso, will actually scoot the page up and down for you, which is a really nice feature. All right. And then click here. And here we go. Here we go. All of that's done. All right. This is the boring part and the hard part right up here. So I'm just quickly moving over the easy parts. And then I'm going to get myself a clean starting part for the hard part. And you can see the hard part. I mean, it's just this part where it's not real clear where the edge is. I'm just, following along. I'd probably go a little slower if I wasn't recording this. Oops, look, see, there's a mistake. Okay, so I'm frustrated because I had a clean line there, and then I lost a piece of it. So what can I do? So I completed my selection, but I don't want to get rid of that part. So I'm going to switch over to the lasso tool. I'm holding Alt so that I'm minusing the selection. And I just traced my hand right there and got rid of the part that I didn't want to delete. So that's a tip. And then I'm going to go back to my lasso tool, magnetic lasso, and pull all through here. If you go real slow, it does a better job of knowing, right where you're wanting to work. I love this tool, this magnetic lasso. I just discovered it a couple of years ago. It's a great tool because it's kind of a blend of man and machine. You're trying to, you're using your eye and your skills of tracing around the object, and it's using its edge detection and, pixel identification. I don't know what to call it. In order to, make these selections. So it's, again, I'd probably go a little bit more careful if I was doing this work for a client, but I'm just trying to show you an example of getting a decent result. All right. Almost done. This last little bit to do. And I chose this shape too because it's fairly complex. I mean, it's this is a nice organic shape that's going to have a lot of curves, a lot of angles. So there's that. And now that's all done. Okay, so now we have our mask. And if we look at our mask, we can see that the edges are fairly hard. We can kind of preview what this would look like. In the harshest environment, it's going to be black. So the harshest background where it's going to look the worst is black. And you can see, oh, look, easy to spot your problems. So I can just grab the eraser tool. I'm going to make it small and fairly hard and just select my gray layer again and just knock that out, which is another way you can do this. I mean, gosh, you can just go right around this with your eraser tool. But you can see where it's hard. I think this would be acceptable for a lot of people. There's probably no problem. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create another layer. Okay. And I'm going to release this clipping mask here and create a clipping mask to my new layer. Okay. And so I have a blank layer and I have my image layer masked to that blank layer. And then I'm going to paint the gray color again. I just use that for my own visual identification. And I'm going to paint it all over this layer that I'm going to use as my final mask. And I'm going to refine this mask that I've made here with feather. So I'm just going to select by control clicking on the layer, you select the layer. And then I'm going to go to select. Oh gosh, I always lose this. Where is it? Layer, select, modify, feather. Okay, and I'm just going to feather it by 2 pixels. The decision on how many pixels to feather it by depends a lot on how large your image is and how big your area you're working with. So I'm working with a 1300 by 1920 image. This actual selection area is much smaller. So I'm going to do 2 pixels, filter, no, select, modify, feather, Shift F6. And I'm going to choose feather radius 2 pixels. So that's going to feather it in both directions by 2 pixels. And it should just soften this edge. And then I'm going to delete. Well, no, we're going to select inverse because I just want to delete everything outside the selection. All right, and now you'll see it's soft. So, to compare it, here's the soft one, and then here's the hard one. And again, that's just personal preference. It kind of looks out of focus there at the edge. But it kind of gives you a softer cutout. And looking at this, I think 2 pixels might have been a little too much to feather. Probably could have feathered this 1 pixel and gotten the effect that I was looking for. So that's, again, just depending on the size of the image. All right, so now saving it as a PNG, we're going to turn that mask on, turn off this black layer. I don't want any white space, so I'm going to come up here and hit Image Trim and trim on transparent pixels. So now I've got just my layer, and then I'm going to hit File, Export, and you can choose Save for Web, or you can choose Quick Export as PNG. You want it to be uncompressed, so if you choose Save for Web, you're going to want to choose PNG 24. Make sure transparency is checked. It's coming out as 1.124 megabytes. There's no reason to do that. We can literally just do File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. I'm exporting it into my Downloads folder and saving it. And we can tell that it's got a transparent background because it's got that alpha checker. And we're going to go to 143 vinyl DTF. And I'm going to go into the Layout Designer and choose a layer, choose the image. Here's my PNG file. Open. And it imports it at the size that it should be printed at. You can always expand it past there. It's not recommended for best quality, but it just kind of gives you an idea. I've got a 10 by 10 here, and that 600 pixel image is only going to be about 1.5 inches. It's like 450 wide, maybe 600 or 700 tall. So to make sure that it's transparent, I can choose a background up here. And I can see, yeah, that's transparent. And I can just put that back to white. So the background doesn't print. It's a preview only. All right, I know that was longer than a quick tip should be, but hopefully that helps with making transparent images in Adobe Photoshop. Thanks and have a great day.